Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the folks that are doing the talk or speaking circuit, I guess you'd call it, and the globalists and pro-globalists completely dominate this. They must be 95% of all these events, these speaking events, are pro-globalist speakers and activists and so on. Now they're doing the usual globalist thing. They'll get a strident, very one-eyed doctrinaire activist. Then they'll sling them a few book publishing deals and give them some honorary job on an otherwise or once prestigious magazine or online forum, and so that gives them the credentials. And then they can be used to go around on the speaking circuit, lecturing the rest of us and telling us that white supremacy's everywhere and every Hitler's around every corner and so on. And again, the globalists completely dominate this. And there's a few I've come across sort of recently, and I thought I'd comment on it because they're all from northeast United States. They're all female and they're all Jewish. Maybe that's just all a coincidence, but somehow they've ended up doing the speaking circuit. And I saw one of them not long ago. This was online, and it's a NGO, very very Jewish NGO, and a very Jewish moderator, and she appears on the show and was coming out with the most outlandish and ridiculous assertions and claims and things that couldn't be backed up. But she's challenged on nothing. The audience must be almost hand-picked because they seem to applaud everything. Donald Trump's a fascist. Yeah, everyone claps madly. These sorts of things. So I think giving you an idea of the sort of audience that they're inviting. It's definitely the converted there, but just looking at the structure of the interview and her this activist's views, because it's pretty much a script that the others are sticking to, that's being parroted all over the world. So clearly, it's not an individual view that this woman has arrived at through great intellectual rigor. Far from it. It's just straight globalist talking points being maybe dressed up in slightly different clothes across the different people, but effectively the same thing. So the thrust of it is that if the media really is free in America and the West generally, completely free, and anyone who says otherwise is a fascist. But the only thing that happens in the West is this corporate-controlled cabal of globalists that controls the media. No. It's a totally free media, free and open press, and anybody that's dismissed from the public square is unpersoned in the media and so on. That's not them being unpersoned. That's not restricting the press or denouncing other voices or preventing them from speaking. It's not that. We're just stopping Nazis. It's Nazis. They're Nazis. And they're not allowed to have a view. How do we know they're Nazis? Because we said so. And we control the public square, and they're damn Nazis, and that's why they're not allowed to speak. But that's not censorship. That's not censorship. We're doing good things. We're good people doing good things. And how do we know it's good? Because we're stopping Nazis. Wow. I mean, and that's it. So that's their rationale on that score. But let's say Vladimir Putin might restrict the press. No, that's not allowed. No, that's censorship because he's a fucking Nazi. If Viktor Orban in Hungary, the Prime Minister of Hungary, who's recently been re-elected, even if he favours, like as in the government's expenditures, even if they favour certain media outlets over others, say there's media outlets that have a lot of NGO and globalist influence, and they're critical of the Orban government. Now, what the government does is they have a preference for spending money. It could be advertising, it could be anything, but the money they spend in the media, of spending it with organisations that are not globalist controlled, that are not George Soros influenced. So that's surely a reasonable thing, isn't it? I mean, that's. I mean, the press is hardly free if there are outside players, whether it be EU activists or whether it be NGOs or Soros or anybody. If there's outside influence of those media outlets, surely limiting their reach or not funding them by the Hungarian taxpayer not giving them money, surely that's reasonable enough, isn't it? No, it's not, because that means he's a Nazi, he's a fascist, because he's doing that. He's limiting their freedom to speak or reducing it or making it less economical for. Well, hold on, wait a minute. He's the prime minister of that country, and that's the government. I mean, that's surely something that, no, it's not. How do we know he's a Nazi? Because he won't allow open immigration. Black and brown people running riot all over the place. Because he won't allow that, that makes him a damn fascist Nazi. That's all the facts you need. Audience claps and they're going insane with excitement here. So we've got where if you allow mass migration, they're going insane with excitement here. So we've got where if you allow mass migration, unrestricted, just illegal aliens running riot in all directions, if you allow that, then you're morally superior. But if you don't allow it, if you want some sort of controls on it, some sort of limits on it, you want then you're Hitler. That nothing in between. Is it? Well, surely it's a bit more nuanced than that. No. Morally superior, morally pure, even Hitler. Those are the only two. That's it. The two extremes. So looking at this woman talking, she was very much of the thing that the globalist thing is gay, lesbian issues, gender issues, race hustling, gender hustling, all that sort of stuff. That is moral purity. But if you oppose it, question it, or want to limit it, or think it's damaging, which of course it is, you think it's damaging, then you're Hitler. So no, Hitler isn't allowed to be elected. You're a Nazi, you're Hitler. You're not allowed to be elected to anything, even if you win. Because if people vote for you, it's either because you did something with the media, or you wouldn't let Soros have his own publication. So it's that sort of thing. Or alternatively, you were a populist. You did what the people wanted. And then you're not allowed to win elections. There's a technocratic class of self-styled experts that should be running the world. This idea of democracy and people voting, it's bullshit. We are a superior, morally superior class, and we will dictate to the others how they will live their lives and how they must live their lives and how they're allowed to think. And anyone that opposes that is Hitler. And really, that's the sort of the rationale. And you look at these people and think, how the fuck can you even think that? The will of the people expressed through the ballot box, it's not perfect. No one says it is, and I certainly don't. I look at some of the videos that Mark Dice does on the, I think it's some sort of Californian waterfront there or beachfront, and you look at some of the people he talks to and you cringe thinking, holy crap, those people have the vote. And it's not perfect, and that's an expression of its imperfection. But show me a better system. Really, show me one. You can say, well, a super bright, very enlightened monarch maybe could sort of get things done and do things like that and not be subject to the, say, political whims and so on. But how long will that person stay unaffected and stay at the top of their game so they can deliver better outcomes? Because if they do something that's damaging, then you've got really no way of getting rid of them. You can't punish them through the ballot box or get rid of them or vote them out of office, that sort of thing. So really, for all its imperfections, democracy is assuming you have a homogenous, society, then it works, I think, pretty well. And again, if you say it doesn't, show me something that's better. And the idea of, we'll have a bunch of technocrats, autocrats running things, and this time it'll work. It just never has before. No, I don't see, because inevitably they stop selling you the idea of bringing you along to the populace and say, well, we'll just kill anyone that doesn't agree with us. And that step is very close. Once that autocracy is achieved, then that's it. We'll kill. They just kill off people they don't want. Now, in the West at the moment, the media, the globalist media cabal and the Democrat Party and various political parties are sort of fused together almost as one. So democracy in the sense of the people choosing and deciding, freedom of the press holding the body politic accountable, that's already gone in the West. So I don't know if that's going to come back anytime soon. I suspect not. I hope it does. It needs to, but we've already lost that. But this speaker was the view that if you're morally pure, that is, you support gay, lesbian, transgender issues, and you allow mass migration, illegal migration, and that sort of thing. Open borders, and gender fluidity, and teachers indoctrinating 5-year-olds in gay, lesbian issues, that sort of thing. If you allow that, then you're just morally pure, and everyone else is a Nazi. And that was pretty much it. Now, this particular speaker who was sort of touted as some intellectual heavyweight, I couldn't see it, but again, as I mentioned before, Jewish, and her family came from Eastern Europe in the sort of what would be today modern day Poland, and came from that region, and there was a lot of her family was back then, well before she was born, were activists, very activist in the Jewish cause at the time. Now, it was an interesting sort of time there because they, as I understand it, the relatives, great grandfather or something, left the Russian side of what today is Poland and went to the German side. The Germans were quite a bit more tolerant than the Russians. Jews were allowed to hold government office, things like that. Also, they're given the option of converting to Christianity and so on. So now, one of the sort of problems that the Jewish activists at the time, this is back in that Eastern Europe, northeastern Europe there, they didn't want to integrate into Gentile society. So they wanted equality in all things with Gentiles, but they didn't want to become Gentiles. So they wanted to keep their Jewishness 100% intact, customs, habits, food, where they dressed, the sort of places where they hung out, and that sort of thing. They wanted to keep the Jewishness 100% intact, but they wanted to have all the benefits of being in a Gentile, a reasonably well-to-do Gentile society. Now, the government of it was Prussia at the time, which was the largest German state. The government at the time said, well, no, if you want to have citizenship, then you must put your citizenship first and your Jewishness second or last. The citizenship has to come first, and the society, the civis that you're in. And this was a real sticking point with the Jews then, as indeed it is now, not with all, but with many. So amidst all the carry on, and her descendants left that part of Europe and came to the United States. And you'd think from the way this woman talks today that she's living the activism of the fucking 1850s, 1860s. And it's very much part of the Jewish thing that the schooling and the training they get is that they've been victims, for no reason, by the way, of those evil, wicked Gentiles for many centuries. And they've got some unfortunate business to point to. There's not a lack of examples here. Why it might happen and why it happens so often in so many different places, that's another matter. But their view is that the Gentile society, a white Gentile society, is this amorphous mass of threat to the Jewish diaspora. And until that's gone, the threat will remain. And therefore, the globalist project breaks completely the power of the Gentile diaspora. And thus, removes the threat to Jewishness or Jews. That's, I mean, I'm simplifying a bit there, but that's pretty much the architecture of their thinking. So anything that leads to the dismantling, as they would see it, of the Gentile diaspora and all the power that goes with it, is automatically, I mean, it doesn't have to be thought about, reasoned, nuanced or anything. It is automatically a protection of Jewry everywhere. So with that sort of simplicity of outlook, the mass migration and the loss of social trust and the breakdown of Western white Gentile society is to be not only greeted and worked for and feverishly supported, but it's a matter for celebration, and that's really comes through through these sort of things and the amount of Jews that are either at the front line activisting or indeed funding it. Now, not all Jews do that. Look at Dave Rubin. I mean, he's gay and Jewish, for goodness sakes. He's on the other side. You know, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and the list goes on. Ezra Levant at Rebel News. These are people who are doing, you know, fantastic work in varying ways and capacities on the other side of the equation. So it's not all one way. But that's the thing there. And I noticed these. So Viktor Orban, his election win, he wouldn't allow freedom of the press. That's why he won. Populist, that's why he won. Fascist, The people don't like the idea of all these black and brown folks swamping their society. And that means he's a racist. If it's a racist, it means he's a fascist. If it's a fascist, he's a Nazi. If he's a Nazi, he's Hitler. And that's really the rationale that they go through. Now, Hungary or the government of Viktor Orban won't allow the social trust to be torn to pieces in their country. They won't allow their Hungarianness to be diluted. And that's, by the way, a tough gig. Hungarian's a relatively unique language in Central Europe. I don't think anyone really speaks it or could even understand it outside of Hungary and the periphery around it. You know, say parts of Ruthenia or this sort of thing could probably understand it, but it's a small country. I think population is just under 10 million. So it's a tough gig to maintain one's cultural independence with such a small country that has very little sort of direct affinity, say through language, for example, with the surrounding countries or anywhere in Europe. But you know, and that can be worked around. You know, for example, English could be compulsory in all schools, for example, you know, and things like so. Things can be done there. It's hardly a write-off, but that's the government of Hungary, voted for by the people of Hungary, reviewed and held to account by the media of Hungary, and they have every right to determine who comes into their country and who can stay and under what circumstances. And I hope forever it remains so, and I hope more countries follow suit. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.